What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online video. In this one, we're going to be talking about industry, multitasking, and how to kind of manage your time, manage your efficiency while doing multiple things. As industry gets more and more complex, more layers are added, you really have to start kind of, making sure you're doing a lot of different things. As you can see right here, we're doing like 180 plus science slots while also mining, while also doing PI, and we'll kind of talk about all that stuff and how it kind of affects my process. And hopefully you'll get some inspiration in scaling your industry process. Now, industry, even at like a smaller scale, everything kind of starts off at the planning phase. It can be very difficult to kind of get off of this phase, especially if you experience something like I like to call industrialist block, not too much unlike writer's block, where you spend a lot of time on the market looking at margins, trying to figure out what to build, and then you get stuck in that phase for a while when you're trying to figure out what BPOs to invest in and things like that. So normally, like, those beginning learning stages are hard to get through because it depends on like where you operate in nullsec, what products you can reliably move at a decent markup or decent margins at least. And that's kind of just trial and error, right? This video is really going to talk about the process that you would go through in, developing and building and a lot of different items and stuff. The one thing I will tell people, one of the biggest pieces of advice when it comes to industry is when you're looking at the market and you see something that has a really good margin, deciding to build that item right then and there is not going to do you any favors, right? Because time is your biggest opponent when it comes to industry. And what I mean by that is if you see a really good item that you could make a profit on, then, if you have to then start building it, that means, let's say you don't even have that BPO. You got to get that BPO, then you got to get the mats if you don't have them, do the research on the BPO, run copies on those if you needed, then manufacture, then transport just to get to market. Chances are by the time you got to that point, that margin that you initially got inspired for is stale. All that information is stale at that point. I try to not look at the market until I hold inventory for stuff. Like, I build a bunch of different things. Diversify is important. Go ammo, go charges, go T1 hulls, and also just, really popular items that might be like in theme or in like kind of popularity right now. And then once you start like kind of experimenting with a bunch of different things and you start to see like what you can consistently you make good profits on, then you put those on your like industry short list. You put those on that list of things you're always putting together, you're always building inventory for. Then when you go to the market, instead of looking at the market as a whole and trying to find a good deal, look at the market in terms of what you have in inventory. And if you see a good margin, you can immediately capitalize on that right then and there. You don't have to worry about waiting because you and about 1,000 other people are going to see that margin and do the exact same thing. They're either going to go and build a crap ton of that item and flood the market and that margin will disappear. Or they'll already have that item in inventory and they'll offload it, they'll liquidate it all right then and there, which can also make that margin disappear before you even can get to market for that. So try not to get stuck in the planning phase. You're going to have to like just kind of figure out what works. It's very, very situational for the individual person on what they're building. Most people online are not going to give you straight, hey, go build this and make a profit. Because if they did that, then that item would get flooded, saturated, and then it would no longer be profitable, right? So a lot of industrials won't share what their key items are and things like that. So it really depends. One really good rule of thumb here is I try to lean toward building things that I use on a daily basis. That way, if I don't end up selling them, I can at least get some use out of them, or I don't really get penalized for holding that inventory for too long. But let's go and talk about multitasking. This is very, very important. All of my alts have, like, when I make an alt and they start training for industry, they go lab operations all the way to 5, advanced laboratory operations all the way to 5, and then we do mass production. We do the reaction stuff. We want those guys to be at least 10, 10, 10 on their job slots. The 3 different categories of job slots are the manufacturing job slots, which you can have up to 11 per character, science job slots, which you can have up to 11 as well, and then reaction job slots. Now, The manufacturing job slots are for building things. The reaction slots are for, obviously reactions. But the science job slots will actually share with invention, copying, and research. So normally what I'll do is I'll go and acquire, let's say I'm going to be planning to build a bunch of jump freighters. I will go in there, and if I don't already have the BPOs, I'll go in there and get all the BPOs for all the components and everything that's required for the entire pipeline, and I'll put them all into research. Once they're all through research and I start getting some science slots opened up, then I will start copying the things I want to copy, like, for instance, like a share on BPO. I might do and like normally when I'm, planning for a really big, manufacturing kind of job, I'll plan about a month out, and I will run 30-day jobs. I'll go max run, max copy for 30 days, and I'll just make a crap ton of copies off that Sharon. And then I'll also do some copies for invention. So I'll be once those copies come out, I'm just going to be throwing those things in invention and try to get the, the added bonus of getting some Ray BPCs and everything. So I always have science jobs. My science job slots are always either research on the BPOs that are going to go into the next big, massive job we're going to do, or we're doing copying, or we're doing an invention, and then also reactions. I will still do reactions, and I'll still mine for materials that I don't necessarily need for like an upcoming job, or if I'm trying to plan and I don't really know what I want to build yet, I will still do a healthy amount of mining PI reactions and just kind of stockpile everything, because when I do figure it out and I figure out what I want to do sustainably, I kind of already have that base foundation. That's very important to when you don't get stuck in that planning phase where you don't really start doing reactions, or you don't start doing copies to go on to invention or anything like that. You're just kind of like sitting there waiting and trying to find something good to build. Get roughly a good idea. Take like one or two BPOs in like different categories and just start looking at the materials. And just personally for me, I like just looking at all the materials across the entire industry and try to, keep all that stuff in stock the best I can. And doing a PI also is just very important as well too, because like it's always going even when you're offline. And same with like the research jobs and the manufacturing jobs, research jobs, copying, invention, reaction, all that stuff is happening when you're offline. And then when you are online, you're doing logistics, you're doing mining, you're refining, you're doing a bunch of different stuff while all that stuff is still going on. Now, I've talked to a lot of people that have done industry, and they, will go out there and just mine and do all their material acquisition. Then they'll start like getting the BPOs, then doing the research in one step at a time. And that, that you can run into a very, very long pipeline if you do that. And that can hurt your profit margins, because our goal is to try to like build a infrastructure, build a machine that we can output as many of a certain amount of products in a shortest amount of time. And that just requires you to get very, very used to the idea of always doing multiple things. Like just like the footage in this video, you're seeing I'm mining, and I'm also doing PI in the background on different characters. There's also science jobs running on different characters, like 180 plus slots. We're doing some manufacturing as well. So we're never actually just doing one thing. I even add the product discovery on top of it all too. Product discovery is great if you're like out there mining and you're kind of just doing logistics and, messing around, because those submissions can actually help pay for some low level research on some BPOs and stuff like that. But I really wanted to make this video today to try to help you guys understand like, what it looks like at scale. We'll probably do a little bit more in depth on this stuff when I get some of the other BPOs that I want to put together. I'm probably going to do like a short mini series about building jump freighters or even freighters, and show what this kind of looks like in practice. But if you're getting into industry, just make sure you understand that. Go ahead and start mining all that stuff. Go ahead and start doing the research for a bunch of different BPOs. Diversify. Make sure you're planning on diversification from the very beginning, and you'll be good to go. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.